Let me continue with what?
Don't expect anything less than the #1 rated Caribbean show. Caribbean vibration. Caribbean vibration. Caribbean vibration. Caribbean vibration.
Right there, and you were just walking past because they're blending with the environment.
You know that a bunch of black people in the bush could wage such a successful war against the British and force a treaty out of them is certainly something to be proud about.
The first peoples to actually win this kind of struggle, people who were slaves, were the Maroons. And I think that's often lost in the history books. People who understand Caribbean history will talk about the Haitian Revolution, and they won't talk about the Maroons in the 18th century.
You're watching Caribbean Vibrations, and we're here with filmmaker Mr. Roy T. Anderson, and you had a film, a documentary that you did called Akwantu. So tell us, what was the genesis behind this whole project?
It basically is just me being very curious, wanting to know more about my family, and just, frustrated that I'm not getting, all the information that I want personally. So I just, went a step further, decided, to research, to find the documents that would, give me a sense of purpose in this world. So, by going to the Family History Center of the local Church of Latter-day Saints, I was able to find my my grandparents, their marriage certificate. I saw my grandfather's birth certificate for the first time. His two brothers, all that stuff. Jumping, from the documents just really got me excited. And as far as the documentary now, what led to that, growing up, my grandfather always talked about, where we came from, Maroons from up in the hills, a compound. And, doing this research, Maroons, the name just kept on coming up. And I said, wait a minute, this is what my grandfather had talked about. I want to know some more. So I grabbed as many books as I could on the Maroons, read as many online articles, and then at the end of the day I said, the Maroon story it's great, but it shouldn't just live on the pages of a textbook. Myself being in the industry, a stuntman, for over 31 years and having access to equipment and to expertise, I decided that they deserved a bigger treatment, and that's when I came up, with the idea of doing a full-on feature on the Maroons, first that's ever been done.
And I find that very interesting because, for myself, being a Caribbean person, people know it's called Buju Banton, and he's talked about Maroons for a long time. Now, is there one part of Jamaica the Maroons are from? That they live, sorry?
There are several different communities in Jamaica, recognized communities where Maroons are. There's a Kampong, which is where I trace my lineage. That's in St. Elizabeth. In the parish of Portland, you have Moortown and Charlestown, and then there's another Maroon community in St. Mary's. That's Charlestown. One Maroon community that's no more is Trelawney Town. This is, based on some trickery on the part of the British, where they deported, over 500 Maroons to Nova Scotia, and from there they went to Sierra Leone. It's it's a story that a lot of people know about, but not enough is it's taught about it.
That's very interesting because I actually do know, I've heard that story, so it's very interesting from the other side. Now, you had a chance to go to Africa twice. First for your brother's wedding and then for the documentary. What was the difference? Because the first time you go was a different time, but the second time when you go back, you have a bit more knowledge. So what were the two times like?
Well, the first time, it was almost like a vacation, it was something new. But the second time, there was something definitely, that I couldn't describe. It was a much deeper feeling, I went there to really connect, with the roots. Because, as I said in the film, to really get to the heart of what, the genesis of this marinage, I had to go, where it all started. And that was in Africa. So I had to put myself physically in the footsteps of my ancestors, walked on the same roads they did, go in the same, the holding cells where they, would have been held. Rented a boat to go onto the Gulf of Guinea. So I wanted to mimic their every movement. And the feeling every time that I did that was so, you know, overwhelming. It's just something that, you know, I can't describe. It was no vacation.
Now, you had a chance to go to Elmina Castle and go to the Door of No Return. What was it like going through that? Because, I mean, I can't imagine. So what was it like?
That's a great question. I can't describe it. You know, as I said over and over again, the feeling is something that's just one that's, it's overwhelming. Quickly, you know, I went in one of the dungeons, and I told the guy to close the door for a minute. It was pitch black, no light, and I just closed my eyes and just, you know, imagine 300 years ago. I couldn't imagine it. Couldn't imagine it.
Now, your brother's over there, and he actually gave himself an African name. Would you ever think about doing something like that?
We'll see. As I said, you know, there are different ways to skin a cat, different ways to run a race. You know, we're all, you know, heading for the same target, the same finish line. You know, we have different ways of telling the story.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. And that was filmmaker Mr. Roy T. Anderson, and the film is Akwantu. Make sure you check it out, and you're watching Caribbean Vibrations.